My HOA president sent me violation fines because my indoor cat violates community values. I never imagined that my quiet suburb, with its well-cared-for lawns and predictable neighbors, could become the setting for one of the most exhausting chapters of my life. When I moved in, the community seemed ideal, peaceful, clean, with walking trails lined with trees, and a small lake that was really more of a pond, but I'll let them stretch a point. It wasn't luxurious, but it was charming, and for someone who works from home and avoids chaos, it felt perfect. Pumpkin, my cat, approved as well. He's a large tabby with a round belly and is the sweetest boy. He's 7, a rescue I adopted 2 years ago. He's an indoor cat, and that's kind of his choice too. He likes to sunbathe, but he's very skittish around other people or cars, so it works best for him to stay indoors. The closest he ever came to violence was chasing his own tail and losing. Every morning after I feed him, he'll wander to the front window, get up on the low bookcase that's just underneath the windowsill, lie down with his paws curled beneath him, and watch the outside world like a feline security guard. That has been his ritual, peaceful and quiet. Everyone has their hobbies. Pumpkin's was wildlife watching behind a window. There's a porch railing to the left. There's bushes just underneath the window. There's a tree in the front yard and a bird feeder hanging from the tree. So there are plenty of places for birds or squirrels to perch. Sometimes, if a bird landed on the railing or the feeder, he would crouch low, wiggle his butt as if preparing for a life-or-death jungle pounce, and then fling his paws at the window with a dull thump. The birds would scatter into the air, unharmed and unaware that they had nearly ruined a house cat's sense of pride. It was the closest thing to excitement either of us experienced in this peaceful community. I loved those moments, watching him play, and within a few minutes the birds would be back for a repeat performance. So, when I pulled a letter out of my mailbox one morning, a formal violation notice with the HOA's official stationery signed by the president, Brenda, I assumed it was about recycling bins or lawn edging or the color of my doormat, something minor, something I could fix in under 10 minutes. Brenda was a stickler for every rule, and I was certain this was another of her nothing burger squabbles. Instead, it accused me of, quote, allowing your pet to engage in repeated aggressive behavior toward wildlife in violation of community values. I read it twice, then laughed out loud. Surely it was a misunderstanding. At worst, someone overly sensitive needed to redirect their energy towards a hobby that didn't involve neighborhood surveillance. That afternoon I called Brenda. I kept my tone friendly and calm, assuming it would be a quick conversation ending in mutual understanding. Good afternoon, HOA Community Board. You've reached Brenda, she answered. It felt a bit formal, and I tried not to roll my eyes. Hey, Brenda, this is Maisie. I received a violation notice about my cat, but I think there's been a mix-up. Oh, no, there's no mix-up, she said immediately. We received 2 resident reports of your cat acting aggressively towards birds. I blinked, momentarily speechless. He's inside the house. He's no threat to the birds at all. That may be, she replied, but the behavior is distressing to witnesses, and it's disruptive to the natural wildlife activity our community values. He's not hurting anything, I explained. He just watches birds like any house cat, and sometimes he tries to jump at them, but he never actually reaches them, because of the window. It's the values that are our focus, she said snootily. Pumpkin's values? I asked. Ma'am, she snapped, this community values our wildlife, and if that is not a shared value, perhaps this wasn't the right neighborhood for you. I fell silent after that, feeling there was simply no way to have a reasonable conversation with this woman. She did calm down and eventually recommended closing blinds or moving furniture to block the window to mitigate predatory conduct. I ended the call politely, still hoping, maybe grasping at straws, that this was something that could be cleared up logically. People couldn't seriously expect me to board up my windows because a cat was being a cat, right? I underestimated both the boredom and the determination of minor suburban authorities. A second letter arrived the next week, this time with handwritten additions in the margins, underlined. The tone was sharper, almost parental, as though I was a rebellious teenager rather than a homeowner in her mid-30s. The letter warned of further action if steps are not taken to correct and prevent future wildlife distress. I truly tried, to settle it quietly. I emailed videos of Pumpkin in the window, doing nothing more than blinking, or pouncing unsuccessfully. The birds were neither harmed nor terrified. I even filmed one lingering on the railing after Pumpkin's attempted ambush, preening its feathers, completely relaxed. My evidence was ignored, or perhaps dismissed out of pride. A meeting was scheduled, and I was instructed, not invited, to attend. It was held in the clubhouse, a building that I'm pretty sure Brenda made the residents pay for with a fundraiser a few years before I moved in. 5 board members sat behind a long folding table, and several seated residents turned to stare at me as I entered, as though I were arriving for a court sentencing. The strain of trying to take this theater seriously was really wearing on me. Brenda led the meeting. She spoke with the rehearsed cadence of someone who believed she operated on a higher moral plane. She referenced community cohesion and environmental harmony, while occasionally glancing at her notes, which appeared far too extensive for such a trivial matter. I imagined myself standing up and hollering, "Are you serious?" The first resident to speak was a woman I had only seen occasionally while retrieving mail. She was Brenda's best friend, and I was pretty sure she was lying out her ass. She stated that it made her uncomfortable to see a cat launching itself at the window with what she called visible desperation and clear predatory intentions. She said it was upsetting to watch the birds suddenly take flight. "The birds take flight because they have wings," I replied, perhaps too sharply. "That's not distress, it's biology." A woman on the opposite side raised her hand. I recognized her as the owner of 3 porcelain garden gnomes and a permanent disapproving frown. She said that she walked past my home daily and found the behavior unsettling and unnecessary. She believed that animals should not be, and I quote, encouraged to fantasize about violent acts. I laughed, not because it was that funny, but because the alternative was to scream. Had she never heard of prey drive? When I asked directly what rule, regulation, or documented guideline my cat had violated, Brenda read aloud from a vaguely written clause about animal behavior that disrupts community tranquility or creates perceived threat. Perceived, I repeated. So perception outweighs reality. Her silence was, unfortunately, answer enough. The meeting ended not with compromise, but with an ultimatum. Restrict Pumpkin's access to the front window or face continued fines and potential legal action. My refusal wasn't dramatic. I simply stated that I would not punish or restrain an animal for natural behavior conducted safely inside my own home. Over the next 2 months, I documented everything. Every new letter, every instance of residents pausing on the sidewalk to stare inside, or take photos because they did that too. I reached out quietly to a local attorney who specialized in property and association disputes. She advised me to remain calm, gather proof, and say very little. What finally shifted the situation wasn't anger, it was exposure. My attorney contacted the board formally, requesting justification of their actions and referencing homeowner rights, property privacy, and harassment policies. She attached a request for documented legal authority supporting their demands. The handful of HOA members behind all of this had, it turned out, been less thorough than they believed. Their claims had no precedent, no legal standing, and no formal backing in the association bylaws. Moreover, it came to light that wildlife protection policies cited by the HOA president were personal interpretations rather than official regulations. In simple terms, Brenda was screwed. Over the following weeks, board members resigned one by one, just quietly in a trickle of emailed notices. I learned later through casual neighborhood conversations that several of them had grown uncomfortable with the direction things had taken long before my case. Brenda demanded loyalty, and she rewarded it, but if someone went against her, soon they had HOA violations and fines piling up. Brenda was the last to step down, but eventually she did. She left only after the board was advised to conduct a policy review under guidance from an independent residential consultant. A new board was voted in a few months later. It was made up of people who had no interest in micromanaging natural house cat behavior in windows, nor much interest or concern about the emotional fortitude of sparrows. Pumpkin still sits in that same window every morning, tail flicking, eyes dilating, occasionally throwing himself against the glass with theatrical commitment and zero success. Birds still land on the railing, the branches, the feeder, and hop about freely. Sometimes I think the birds know Pumpkin can't get to them. Actually, I'm quite sure sometimes the crows flit about intentionally just to wind Pumpkin up. So the front window in the morning has become a peaceful routine again. Only now, every single time he leaps, confident, determined, and entirely delusional, I smile bigger than I used to. Pumpkin reminds me to take pleasure in the small things in life, and now I can often be seen staring at the birds with him in my free time. If you enjoyed this reading and want to hear more, please subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. Please hit the like button and check out our playlists of family drama stories, Am I the A-Hole posts, or Tales of Entitled People. You'll find those lists and many more at our channel. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.